Push Pass Nation, come on in, check in, post the message. Let us know that you are here. Simone Matthew here, and we are coming to you this evening to talk about a very important topic. So, we're here this evening to talk to you about child abuse in Dominica as well as the rest of the world. And you know, this is such a sensitive topic, and it is one of those topics I've been putting off discussing for a while because I think it is such a sensitive topic. And unfortunately, in Dominica, we don't seem to have many solutions to the problem. We see a justice system that is not very forthcoming with prosecuting offenders, and many times children are forced to remain in the homes where they're being abused. But you know, we're bringing on two very special young ladies today. We have Dr. Shamina with us as well as Miss Abigail with us, and they're going to tell us about the ways that they're confronting child abuse. So that is the reason that we're here today. So come on in, share the live. Let everyone know that we are here for this conversation. Tell us where you're joining us from and all that great information. And as you're coming on in, I just want to thank everyone who continues to support the program, to thank our sponsors, TDN Radio, as well as Badui Financial Services. And also, I like to check in at least once a month just to see how our audience is growing. And I am happy to report that we're now up to 18,300 visitors for the months between April and May on Facebook. And we're also up to 32,000 viewers on YouTube. So that kind of just tells us that you're finding value in the programs that we're doing, that you're supporting the effort. And we want to thank everyone. And I see Liz Thomas is joined in, and she's one of our greatest supporters. And I want to thank everyone who continues to recommend programs and continue to recommend guests for the programming that we do. So this is a lot of, community-based programming where we take your ideas, your suggestions, and we bring on folks who can talk on the topic. So come on in and share the live, and let us welcome our guests to the program as they unmute their mics and they say good evening. I think we may have lost Abby for just a minute, but she will be right back. And we say good evening to Cecilia Phipps, who has just joined in, as well as Muslin Edwards, who has just joined in. So, Dr. Shamina, welcome to the program.
Thank
And
you.
let us know a little bit more about who you are.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to the program. I'm so happy to be here. A little bit about me. My name is Shamina Aubuchon. I have a PhD in biomedical sciences with a focus on immunology. So I'm an immunologist by training. And currently I work as a regulatory affairs scientist. And I do a lot of work with the Food and Drug Administration here in the US. As a side project, I am an advocate against child abuse, child sexual abuse specifically. And my goal is to try to help children all over the world. And I plan to do that by writing books and working on educational material for children as young as 1 year old. And so with that, I'm happy to meet you, and I'm happy to share my thoughts on the topic.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm guessing that Abby will come back in, but let's continue the conversation as we say good evening to Tina Bell de Ramon, as well as Cece Christmas, who I think was going to be Abby's mom. So great to have you on. Abby's trying to come back on. She's having a little bit of internet problems. Abby, can you hear us? Unmute your mic. She has a little delay. Can you hear us, Abby? Okay, so she'll join in when she's ready, when she can hear what we're saying. But Dr. Shamina, kind of just tell us what sparked your interest in the topic of child sexual abuse. And again, this is a very sensitive topic, so we're going to treat this topic with the utmost respect this evening. And it is so important that we have this conversation, because I think what we are finding, and you can let me know your thoughts on that as well, Dr. Shamina, is that the more we keep silence about topics such as these, It's almost like we're empowering the predators, the perpetrators, to continue to do what they're doing in silence. So I think by giving this topic a voice, by lifting the veil of secrecy that often surrounds this topic, we can do justice to the topic this evening. So, kind of just tell us what sparked your interest on the topic while Abby works on the technical issues in the background.
Yes, definitely. So, um, it took a long time for me to get here. I mean, growing up, I was born and raised in Dominica. I lived in Dominica until I was 17 years old. And unfortunately, I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse. So it took a long time for me to actually get to the point where I could talk about this publicly. I mean, I had to go through the emotions, I had to do some healing, find some inner strength, and now I'm a brave woman, a middle-aged woman, and I'm ready to discuss a topic and to help others. But what really sparked me, Dr. Simone, was the fact that in 2020, when everybody was home and all the kids were, home being homeschooled, I realized, because most of the kids that were being abused were home with their abusers. Because one thing that people don't realize, people always have these ideas that children get abused because they get abducted in a park, or that they're like a stranger will like ask a child whether they want candy. But when you actually do the research and you read about it and you hear survivor stories, they will tell you that most of the abuse, over 75 to 85% of abuse, happens in the home or in places with familiar people who have access to your children. So family members, in the home, in the cars, in places where you think your children are safe. And one other thing I would just mention is, right around that time, one of my really good friends, she found out that her 9-year-old daughter was being abused. So with the pandemic and that happening to my friend's daughter, who, that little girl is like my child, it really aggravated me. And that calling that I had to talk about it and to do something about it, that I was suppressing all these years, I finally decided, you know what, enough is enough. And I just decided to speak out about it.
Yes, and thank you for being so brave to share on this topic that has personal application to you. But let me ask you this, because now we're in 2022 and we would like to think of ourselves as more advanced societies. But why do we still see such secrecy surrounding the issue of child sexual abuse? Why is it so hidden in our society?
So, I mean, I'll speak in general and then I'll speak specifically about Dominica. So, in general, people tend to hold topics about, sexual education from children. People always think that children cannot understand or they don't comprehend those things. When you actually think about it, sex and sexuality is very natural, right? Um, but specifically in the Caribbean, more so the Eastern Caribbean, because I've done extensive research on sexual abuse in the Eastern Caribbean. Part of the problem with the secrecy is, one, taboo. We just don't talk about those things with children. Two, we have the issue where we're still in a society in the Caribbean where men are held as above or superior to women. Three, majority of the women in the Caribbean depend on men financially, and so they tolerate these behaviors from men. So, for example, a woman may have a boyfriend and she has children from another person, and she may know that the children's stepfather is doing that to them, but she may not have the power to stop it or tell about it because she needs him financially. And also, the most important thing, I believe, and the reason why it's so taboo and so extensive in the Caribbean is because in the Eastern Caribbean, children are not given a voice. I remember growing up in Dominica and going to St. Martin's school, and we were always told girls should be seen and not heard. If you say that really slowly and you ponder on every word, you will see how dark and how bad that is to tell a child, as a female, girls should be seen and not heard. There's
Yes.
just some things we have to work on to give
Hmm.
women a voice from small ages.
Absolutely. Abby, let's try again. We're going to keep trying until we get this right. Unmute.
Good evening, everyone.
Oh, finally.
I had to switch devices. Right now, it's much better. And my
Yes, it is.
apologies for that.
Right. So we were just doing some rounds of introduction. So just kind of tell us about you and especially as it relates to the work that you're doing on child abuse.
Okay, well, I am Abigail Christmas. I am the Public Relations Officer of the Girl Guides Association of Dominica. For 2022, we have taken out a mandate to raise awareness on child abuse. Our theme for that campaign is Make Child Abuse Prevention Your Number One Priority. So, what we're essentially planning to do is challenge child abuse in every aspect by raising awareness, by challenging legislation, by having forums where we can educate the public, parents, children themselves on how to deal with child abuse. Too many times we see that child abuse is being kept on the radar where we don't really publicize when these things are going on and we don't take action enough. So essentially, the Girl Guides Association is trying to make child abuse a priority, and we are also employing the public to join us as we challenge child abuse in every way possible for starting this year, and we intend to continue to see that there is real change effected in that arena.
Yes, and thank you for that. And I'm so happy that you're here because oftentimes we hear that the Girl Guides and the Boy Scouts are no longer active in Dominica. So it is great to know that the Girl Guides are still active in Dominica. So can you just tell us about some other projects that is ongoing with that association?
Okay, well, the Girl Guides Association has been on a drive to raise awareness and sort of revamp our presence on island. So we were working to do different community service projects, different collaborations on various topics. As you know, COVID tried to stop us. However, throughout the pandemic, we have been doing online panel discussions, campaigns, challenges, and keeping the young ladies in well, very well to say active. Well, our mission is to really have build responsible young ladies, and what we're trying to do is to take on various various projects in different areas, such as community service, self-respect, different UN Sustainable Development Goals challenges like climate change, gender equality. We're just trying to build them, sort of, learning that these are issues pertinent to them as individuals and the world at large.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. So thank you for that. And I think Dr. Shamina said it perfectly. And actually, what I'm doing right now is I'm pinning to this program the book that we're here to talk about today. And that is going to be, and this is why I said in the beginning that we're going to look at ways to confront, to educate our children, to protect our children. So I just went ahead and pinned the link to Dr. Shamina's website. And of course, the website is If You Touch, I'll Tell. It's one word. And you can already start looking at the work that she's doing in terms of confronting child sexual abuse. So, as we continue the conversation, I think one of the areas that it is so important to stress is the importance of giving children a voice. So, let's just kind of stay on that topic for now, because I think what we've seen in the Caribbean, and Dr. Shamina, you're so right, is that many times we say children are to be seen and not heard. And I am telling you, the predators, they love that expression because now they have our children within their grasp and our children have no voices. So let's just kind of talk about that, the importance of giving your children a voice.
Yeah. So thanks for that, Dr. Simone. So just real quickly, I mean, and people, in the Caribbean too, like we have a lot of focus on respect as it relates to like an age, like this hierarchy of class where like if you're younger than somebody, you must respect them. But one thing I want us to teach our children, and I do that with my own children. I have very young children. I have a 5-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son. And I teach them, you respect those who respect you. And I go as far as saying, even if somebody's older than you, if you're in the care of your teacher or somebody else, but they're not respecting you, you have the right to use your voice and say something about it and talk to somebody else about it. Because I mean, I know a lot of times, children are just, you just feel like you have to respect these adults. And sometimes not all adults have good intentions. So
Mhm.
you should talk to your children and be very specific in what respect is, when you use your voice, and with who you use your voice, and in what way. And I mean, another thing that we need to also be conscious about in the island is, I'll just give an example. Sometimes, you'll be on the street with a child, and then you'll see another adult come up to that child, and that child may cling to the mother's leg, right? And the person's like, come give me a hug, and the mother will push the child, go and hug so and so, come on, go hug. And if the child doesn't want to do it, the child gets reprimanded, like, why are you being like that, you're embarrassing me. No, if a child doesn't want to hug somebody, that is their body, is their personal space. Just like how grown-ups have feelings about, I don't think I trust this person, or this person rubbed me the wrong way. Children have those same feelings, and we need to respect them. Just because they're young and just because they cannot fend for themselves doesn't mean we shouldn't respect how they feel.
Absolutely. Abby, you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, I do actually. And I'm happy that you all brought up that saying that children should be seen, especially young ladies should be seen and not heard. I have spoken to the girl guides in my unit about that, and that is a very distasteful, I would say, saying, and it is used so commonly, and I really do not like to hear it, because what you're essentially saying that you should remain quiet even about things that may bother you, and that
Mhm.
is essentially you breaking down the person's ability to speak up for themselves. You're breaking down their confidence. And
Mhm.
in my Girl Guide unit, the 11th Rosa unit, our word is confidence. So in every way possible, we try to teach those young girls that they should be confident to speak up for themselves, to appreciate themselves, and to speak up for other people. So saying that girls should be seen and not heard, I totally disagree with that distasteful statement.
Right, and the other thing too is, how do we give our children a voice? We have to move away from that saying completely. But I think the other thing we find too is we tell children to stay out of grown-ups conversations.
Yeah.
And I have a 10-year-old. And I am finding, because what happens is when children feel that they cannot talk in general, when they need to talk about something that is serious and impacting them, they won't talk. So, from a very early age, even if it is not a grown up topic, but ask your child, so what do you think about this? Right? And just listen to them. Children are naturally talkative
Yeah.
when they're small. I'm sure, Dr. Shamina, you must be going
Oh my
through that
God.
right
Right
now.
now, just, oh God.
Children
Yeah.
are naturally
Mm-hmm.
talkative, but sometimes we get so tired of hearing them
Mm-hmm.
that we are quick to shush them.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of doing that, we should encourage them. We should probably direct the conversation a little bit if you find
Mm-hmm.
that they're just rambling, because that is how you're establishing trust with your child, that
Yes.
they will feel comfortable. Because I think that is where it all begins. It
Mm-hmm.
begins with having an open line of communication with your children. So, as we're talking about open line of communication and the importance of trust and betrayed trust, let us make sure we're taking some of our comments from Facebook as we see Sissy Christmas. I believe that's your mom. Abby, she's on the live, so don't forget to share the live. Maslin says a very timely discussion on an endemic of unchecked and unpunished sexual abuse in Dominica. And Maslin is so correct, because one of the things that we're finding is that, here you had a case where a young man literally filmed himself abusing a child and he was granted bail. And we think to ourselves, what is going on in our court system? Again, social services in Dominica have the best intentions, but when someone comes to report child sexual abuse, what happens? Is the person actually prosecuted? Is the perpetrator prosecuted? Is the child allowed to go back to the house? Their resources are so limited. So I think that we're already seeing some very good thoughts coming in on the Facebook Live, and we encourage everyone to continue to share. Sandra Norris, great to see you. Agnes, great to see you. Well needed topic. Thank you for that. Agnes, happens more than you think, many times in our own homes. in our own homes. So I think we can already see the importance of starting this conversation. So I will be sure to take some more of your comments as we go along in the program. But let's talk about the betrayal of trust that comes with abuse. And yet again, another example in Dominica, where we had a police officer who was recently arrested for assaulting a young woman. So let us talk about the importance of when it is okay to speak up against folks that we may trust, that our children may trust, and the importance of that. Because what we find is that there's a grooming process, right? So we teach our children about good touch and bad trust, but
Mhm.
we don't tell them about the grooming process. So let's talk about that. What is the grooming process, Dr. Shamina?
Yeah, so that is a term, the term grooming. That is a term that court systems and other systems will use to describe the process that a predator takes with a child. So for example, he or she, predators can be females too, but the majority of time tends to be males. But for example, the man may be near the child, and at first he may touch the child's leg, and there may be other family members around, and he may see that, but they may see it as nothing, and nobody speaks up. So the next time he may move up further, and
Mhm.
all the while, because nobody's speaking up, the child is saying, okay, it might be all right. And then finally, when they're alone, the abuser may do more things that are just inappropriate, absolutely inappropriate. But the child at this point, one, already been taught and been brainwashed to think, see, and not be heard. Two, it might be a family member or family friend, and the child is conflicted, doesn't know how to deal with it. And children, it doesn't matter what age, they always know it's wrong. But according to who the abuser is, children don't have that confidence, that power to speak up because they're worried about what could happen or would anybody believe me? And so the grooming process is basically a process where a predator is taking small steps to become more aggressive in abusing a child. And a lot of the grooming process has to do with teaching the child to keep it a secret.
Mhm.
That's the biggest thing. And that is why the opposite or breaking that barrier has to do with giving a child a voice. So, yeah, the grooming
Absolutely.
process is
Abby?
absolutely horrible.
I would like to add to what Dr. Shamina has just said. And one thing I have noticed is that in Dominica, we don't take that as serious as we should, because you see that older people would, well, I have seen, I cannot say we have seen, but I have seen instances where even older young people would have younger people with them, and they would sort of direct them in a path where they would be attracted to boys, or engage them in sexual conversations and so on. And the Sexual Offences Act of Dominica actually prohibits such behavior. But the question is, how serious do we take it? How many people are being charged for grooming? How often do we bring that to the attention of the law enforcers? So this is something we need to really kind of raise awareness on, to cramp down on. It is an offense, and if you know of grooming, you know for a fact that there is grooming, sexual grooming, and you don't report it, and you instead encourage such activity, you are at fault. I remember when I was going to high school, um, we were all young high school students in our uniform, and then you would see older guys talking to us on our way home from school, and maybe if there's one in the mix that we may have known as a family friend or longtime friend, they would encourage us to entice in conversation. That is also grooming, and we
Hmm.
need to understand that that is a serious offense. We need to cram down on, because this is not just doing something and saying, oh well, that person, that child, she wanted it, she fast. That is not a thing. You cannot say
That is
she's
not
fast.
true.
It is a
That
child.
expression just gets me all the time. She's
It
fast.
drives me,
Like
Right.
she's
yeah,
inviting
yeah.
the abuse.
And it's sad
Right.
because
And you cannot blame the person who has been abused. You
right.
blame the abuser.
Absolutely. Dr. Shamina?
It's so funny that you said that, Abigail. Amazing, because so many people in Dominica and in other places too will be quick to say that these young girls are fast, or these people. What does that even mean? No, young people are curious, and it is natural to be sexually curious. That is part of growing up. But when a child or a woman is raped or abused, that is not their fault. When somebody says no, no means no. No never means maybe or she wanted it, but she said no. No means no. I mean, and people just have to learn to understand that. And I mean, I think part of it too is that in Dominica, we've become super desensitized to sexual abuse. It is so banal, so commonplace that when it happens, it's like, oh, that girl was abused or whatever. It becomes almost like, Beth. And then it's like somebody turns the other way. They don't understand that turmoil that that child or that person's going through and they're going to go through for the rest of their life. And I think we just need to become more sensitized because even to the point you made before, Dr. Simone, about the video that was shared or the video that was basically went sent to courts. Why were people still sharing that on their
Right.
phones? If a child is abused and you get a hold of the video, why would you share that
You're violating that child over
over
and
and
over
over
again.
again? It is child pornography, and people who have that in their phone should be arrested. And of
Exactly.
course, when you continue to do it, it just doesn't make it worse. It's like you have to think about that child like it was yours, like it was you. And we just don't
Yeah,
have
and I'm really happy that you brought up that topic on Facebook. I am coming to you for your comments, so keep them coming. I'm very happy you brought up that topic, Dr. Shamina, because I think what we're seeing is that these cell phones are the greatest access that
hmm
predators have to our children. But just to backtrack a little bit on the topic of grooming, and keep in mind that these folks that are coming at your children, chances are your child is not the first. So they
exactly.
have perfected their art, unfortunately,
hmm
right? And one of the ways that I know that these predators use is they will tickle your child. Oh, so
Oh, God.
funny. Tickle,
Yes.
tickle, tickle. And then before you know it, while your child is
Mhm.
laughing, the hands are moving elsewhere. So we
Exactly.
have to look out for the signs. We have to look at those people that we trust with our children. And I'm going to get to your book because I know that you address that
hmm
brilliantly. So we're going to get to your book. But let us talk about the phones, the cell phones, because my daughter does not have a cell phone, but her other friends have cell phones.
hmm
Who knows what they're looking at on the phones? And they're allowed to bring the phones to school. So that is why I say it begins with being able to communicate with your child, to have an open dialogue with your child, to ensure that you know exactly what is going on in their world. And if they're honest with you, don't get angry at them,
Right.
because
That's
I think
right. Yeah.
sometimes our children want to tell us more, but
hmm
they're so nervous from previous experience that, we exploded, we blew up on them, that now they don't want to reveal anything else. Any thoughts?
That is a really good point that you made because, there's a fine line between being a mom and being a friend. And people will tell you cannot be your children's friend. And I totally disagree with that.
I
No,
disagree.
I'm not giving any parenting advice. But in my opinion, who do you tell your secrets and who do you tell the little naughty things you do? Your friends. Growing up, you told that to your friends. But if you have a mom that is like open and encouraging, even if she has to go screaming her pillow when you guys are done talking, you have to be that kind of mom because you want to know what your children are doing. And I practice that with my daughter. I noticed early on when if I would yell or get too upset about certain things, she would shut down.
Yep.
Once I'm open and I say, listen, it doesn't matter what you say, it doesn't matter what you do, even if it was naughty or it was wrong. If you're just honest with me, it's okay. I just want to know because I want to be your friend. My job as your mom is to protect you and support you. So I totally agree that we have to be a certain level of friends. Of course, we have to still discipline our kids and punish our kids, and they have to respect us. But you have to get to their level and not blow up every time they make a simple mistake. Let them talk to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and also ask them about their day. What happened today? Who were you playing with? Were they playing nice with you? It starts off with those little conversations that will grow as they get older into things like, okay, so who was the boy that liked you? And all the other serious conversations that you may have.
Abby?
Completely agree with you, Dr. Shamina. I think that having an open and healthy relationship with your child, it kind of builds on what type of person that child will be and how they will deal with outsiders. My mother and I have a very close relationship. And I remember growing up, I used to be afraid to tell her certain things because I was like, I do not want to make her feel disappointed. right? If I do something wrong, I don't want to make her feel disappointed because she holds me at such high esteem. And she would always come to me and tell me that it's okay to share it. It's okay. And right now, I can honestly say that I am happy to have my mother as the person I share my secrets with, because who else would be better to advise you on those secrets? But what we were saying earlier, as to the fine line in between who you can trust and who you cannot trust. Oftentimes, especially teenage girls tend to trust who they shouldn't. They trust older cousins, older friends, and that leads them down the wrong path. Because the type of advice you get at the moment, you're so curious, as Dr. Shamina said, you're so curious that you can even be gullible, and certain things you might entice in and be encouraged to entice in may not be the right path for you. So there is a thin line between who you can trust and who you cannot. And I think it boils down to parents properly educating their children and having healthy, open relationships with their children.
Yeah, and I want to make sure we spend some time on Dr. Shimina's book because it is so well done. And we're coming for the comments, but Agnes raises a very important point. She says, let's not forget about our little boys. They
Mhm.
also get abused as well in the hands of older women and men. And that is such an important
True.
point,
Yeah.
Agnes. Thank you for raising it.
Yeah.
Because what we find in Dominica, and of course, we keep referencing Dominica because that is where we were born and raised,
Mhm.
right? So we keep referencing Dominica. And I always say that is our point of concern, what goes on in our own country. And in Dominica, people will tease a boy if he says he's been abused. Like, what are you complaining for? You got something for free, and you should be happy. So let's have that conversation
Mhm.
about how our boys are being abused and they're being told that you should be happy about it.
Yeah.
Yes. As a meeting we had with the Girl Guides Association and some of the core members that would be working on the child abuse prevention matter. We also invited a few outside people to collaborate, among which were three lawyers, because we really think that challenging the legislation is something of paramount importance. We discussed the abuse of boys. And although we are an association mainly to promote responsible young ladies, as you hear the name Girl Guides Association, our mandate to prevent child abuse is not limited to only raising awareness for prevention of abuse in girls. We are also looking to raise awareness for the abuse of boys, because a lot of times we stray and we forget that our little boys are also vulnerable, and we should look out for them and protect them as well. The same questions we ask our little girls, the same things we teach them about good touches and bad touches, we need to teach them to the little boys as well. We need to have conversations that might not be the most how do I say it, the conversation that the boy would be most comfortable to discuss. Unlike girls, girls seem to be more open to discuss certain things, and boys are more reserved most of the time. But we have to talk about the hard things with our children to avoid certain things we would really regret not having those conversations about.
And as we get ready to discuss your book, Dr. Shamin, and again, thank you for using your own experience and putting this wonderfully illustrated, very well done book. And again, I've posted the link. Just tell us, what is the age range for this book, and kind of tell us how you decided what was important to put in this book, while I just show our audience how very well done. There is a warning message in the beginning. And of course, thank you for signing my copy and a dedication. So, what is the age range on this book?
So this book is really intended for kids as early as one. And if parents want to discuss it, even start reading it even to a baby, that's okay as well. But it's really for children 1 plus. And the reason why I said 1 plus is because children are abused. Sometimes I've heard as early as 3, sometimes even babies. But most of the time children don't
Yes.
remember. And so, of course, when children are really young, for example, when a child goes to the doctor has to check certain areas. So even when your child has a well visit, so you have to explain to your child that when mommy's in the room and the doctor is there and the doctor's just taking a peek, that's okay. But there are other times when you have to explain that other things are not right. So it's really for smaller children, but I think even children as far as 9, 10, and 11 may find it
Absolutely.
useful because they may have been abused at 11, let's just say, but never had the voice. And
Mhm.
how I decided what was important. So I thought about it, and I will tell you that I was abused from about, I remember from the age of 7. So I'm not sure exactly when it started. And I finally told at the age of 14. When I was around 11 years old, I knew I had to say something.
Mhm.
It took me from 11 to 14 to find the strength and to find the voice to finally tell my mom. So just think about that. It just took that much time. Now, when I sat down to write the book, I thought about what would have been helpful for me at 11 to tell my mom. And I remember the hardest thing for me was just to get the words out. I did not even know what to say. And so you notice in the back of the book, there's like this like poster where it says like, where did the person touch you? It's like a poster of
Yep,
the
that's
body.
exactly where I was going
Yeah,
because I think
yeah,
that is brilliant that you've included. Do I have it upside down?
yes,
That you've included a page
yeah.
of
So
the
because I was
touching.
right, because I was thinking to myself, if I had that, and I tell parents in the book, cut out that page and stick it on your child's bedroom wall with the corresponding page that lists people, right? So it says mom, dad, aunt, uncle, alphabetically.
Hmm.
Because I remember if I could just go up to my, if I could just hold my mother's hand and I could walk into my bedroom and just point to the picture, and then she would start a conversation. She'd say, "What are you showing me?" Then I would probably tell her, somebody did something to me. Then I would go to the next page and I could just point to the name of the person. Is it mom? Is it dad? Is it cousin? Is it auntie? It'd be so much easier for me. But as an 11-year-old, I had to form a complete sentence. That was the hardest thing I had to do my entire life. And I have 2 children and a PhD. And I'm telling you, it was the hardest thing still to this day. I had to do my entire life. But thankfully, I have a good mom. Her response was good. She believed me. That's the other thing. When I was writing the book, I was sure to put in those 3 words, I believe you. Because if I had went to my mom and she didn't believe me, the abuse would not have ended, right? Because she would not believe me. She would not have confronted the abuser. And so parents need to be sure that when your child comes to you with something so sensitive, you believe them. There, I know that there are instances when children have made up stories, but the majority of the time, when a child comes to you and tells you, "Mom, so and so happened," that child is not making up a story. So for a parent to just turn a blind eye and say, "What is wrong with you? Why would you lie about so and so?" You cannot do that. Because the day I told my mom, it never happened again. My mother put the fear of God in that person. It never happened again. So I thought about all the other thing I thought was important to put in the book was I told children in the book that it doesn't matter what happened, it's not your fault. Because the guilt you feel when you know that something is wrong, you know that this is not right. Because I mean, think about a little child, 7, 8 years old. When the person tells you that's normal, what's happening is normal, you believe them because this is somebody in your life you respect. So it's like when your mom tells you you must brush your teeth every night. You don't go to school and ask your friends, does your mom have to brush your teeth every night? So when somebody tells you something is normal, you don't go asking your friends. You just believe them because that's the person you're supposed to trust, right? So I thought it was important to tell children it's not your fault because for a long time I thought it was my fault. And that ate at me. I'm like, am I doing something wrong? Is this my fault? So that is to take the burden off children. It is not your fault and you must tell. I don't know how many times in the book I said you must tell, but I said it
Yes,
different
yes,
times.
and I think it speaks to how we began the conversation, which is the core of this topic,
Yeah.
giving children a voice. So I think it is great
Mhm,
that you kept reiterated, tell, shout,
mhm.
scream,
Yeah.
let someone know that this is happening to you. So Dr. Shamina, I really want to thank you for your bravery. I
Thank you.
really want to thank you for the way you've channeled this traumatic experience and put it into a positive outcome that we can now use to educate our children because enough is not being done. And, as we come to you, Dr. Abigail, I mean, Miss Abby, and hopefully you'll be Dr. Abigail one day. As we come to you, I think the other important point that we need to re-emphasize is the fact that many times we're happy that Dr. Shamina's mom believed her, but many times you have the cases where I don't think that the moms do not want to believe, but they feel pressured to stay in the relationship because of financial reasons. In a place like Dominica, where jobs are scarce to come by, and that predator might be the provider, what do you do? Any thoughts on that, Abby?
Well, this is a case that this is something we have been seeing for generations. You see that, especially in the low income areas, there will be mothers who settle. But what we need to do is educate parents that it is okay and life will go on if you speak up against the abuse instead of putting it under the table. That way you are only destroying your child more. And when you are telling yourself that you're staying with that person so that they can provide and make life better, you're making life even harder for that child. And I must commend Dr. Shamina
Yes.
because her book and her story is very inspiring. And I hope that people listen to the message that she is giving because it is of paramount importance. We need to give our children a voice. We need to let them know that it is okay to speak up, and the parents need to say that they believe the children. As she said, she made sure to put it in her book, I believe you. I think that the parents need to understand that it takes something from a child to come up to you and say that. And what I have told my girl guides in meetings, I've asked them the question, who do you trust to tell if something is happening like that? If someone is being abused, if someone comes to you and tell you they were abused, what advice would you give? And I try to ask them these types of questions so it is thought provoking, and they could show me their perspective on how they view talking about child abuse and how they view reporting child abuse and what should be the outcome of that report. So essentially what I'm saying is parents need to be educated on how to deal with the matters, because sometimes that parent that child is going to may have been a victim of abuse
Yeah.
and they really don't know how to deal with their child coming to them to tell them they suffered the same fate. One of the things we intend to do as the Girl Guides Association is to partner with different counselors so we could have parent sessions. So we kind of educate parents on how to deal with the matters, and we kind of give a sort of support to them.
Absolutely. And Dr. Shamina, I want to come to you because I think it's important for us to not just encourage everyone to get a copy. If you have a small child, if you have a niece, you have a friend, you have someone who has a young child, that you get a copy. But I also think that this needs to be more than just a book. It needs to be an ongoing project. It needs to be kept in the forefront. It needs to be kept in the media. And I am absolutely ready to do the work with you to ensure that it does, because I think between the three of us, we've already started a very important conversation. But as you think about your response to that question, let's see what everyone on Facebook is saying, because I saw some great comments coming in while we were talking. So Muslin says, why is it the names of the alleged perpetrator pedophiles aren't being made public by the authorities when arrested, and most times, or rather all times, are bailed into the same homes, Lord help us, and communities where the crimes took place, and the victims vulnerable, unprotected, and still at their mercy? So kind of just take notes with regards to what you guys would like to respond to as I go through the comments. Agnes, that tells a story why they don't want to hug a friend or family member. Sissy, your mom, Abby, says, I appreciate this book. Let's teach all our children about inappropriate touches, conversations, and advances from predators. Let them know that it can come from folks who are also close to them and are supposed to protect them. Let's empower our children so they can speak up. Thank you so much, Cece. Royston, nice to see you. Tina, additionally, the laws surrounding sexual abuse in Dominica seem to be inside out, upside down. So they are archaic. They are not suited for present day. Maslin, a young lady told me she was sexually abused by her aunt's husband at 9 to 10 years old. And when she told her mom, she told her, don't repeat it. And so it continued up to the second form in high school. Wow. So keep notes, guys, of what you want to respond to. Roy Labad, nice to see you. John Loblack, great to see you. Are we focusing only on sexual abuse, or will we be looking at the broad concept of abuse? Well, John, we're covering all the topics, but I think the one that is most damaging to a child is sexual abuse. Because what ends up happening many times, these children will end up being promiscuous because we've opened a door that tells them that this is acceptable behavior. So when they're outside of your homes, you start wondering, well, why is my child so promiscuous? And that might be the reason. As Sabria Senhouse, my sister, is here, she says it would be great to have several copies of this book made available to each school in Dominica. Bria, I could not agree more. Would like to suggest to the author that a GoFundMe page or other fundraiser is set up so that persons can contribute to making this happen. This is so prevalent in Dominica, and I only found this out as an adult when I worked as a prosecutor in Dominica. Also more common in some communities than others. Most cases don't make it to the courts either because they are not reported, or in some cases, oops, I can't see the rest of your comment, Bria. In some cases, because they are not reported, or in so, oh, I think I missed the rest of your comments, Bria. Post it again. Fathers, Martin says, fathers really need to play more serious and present role in the lives of their daughters in particular, and not abandon their children because they don't have an intimate relationships with their mothers. Too many fathers are estranged from their children and no parental relationship with them. The role of the father is to provide and protect in the process of loving their children. So let's try to take some comments from folks we may not have taken before. Let's see here. No bull friend throw. I did not live in St. Joseph, but I know I look like a lot of people in Dominica, so I understand. David Joseph, greetings and good evening to one and all. Thank you for being here. David, let's see who we can grab from the folks. My mom is here, Medina Senhouse. Nice to see you. Avril Bertrand, good to see you. Let's see here. Flora says, apart from teaching our children about good and bad touches, we need to establish it for our kids from the time they can have a conversation, and maybe sooner, to teach our girls and boys the types of contacts that should never happen. Beverly Johnson, good evening. Dr. Simone and guests, thank you for being here. John says, thank you. Nice to see you as always, John. So we have quite a bit of great points being raised on the Facebook Live and the YouTube Live channel. So any ones you want to respond to?
Yeah, I will take one. So one of the things that crossed my mind, and I don't remember the exact comment, but one of the things I did in the book was, you maybe noticed, Dr. Simone, is that I use the term trusted adult versus mom or dad or parent. Because a lot of times parents are abusers, fathers are abusers. So in the very back of the book, I have a small note that I call Note to a Trusted Adult. And to Abigail's point, when she said, I really liked how you talk to your children and says, if something is happening to you, can you think of a person that you can tell? Because it's not always mom or dad. Sometimes a trusted adult may be somebody outside of mom and dad, or it might be mom, or it might be dad. It might be mom and not dad. It might be dad and not mom. So that was just one thing I wanted to point out, that yes, we need to make sure that when we talk to children, don't always tell them, tell your mom and dad, because you don't know where the abuse is coming from. And the second thing I will address, and then I'll let Abby have a chance to have the floor, is the point that someone made about, why don't we know who these people are? I've always said that Dominica needs to establish a sex offender registry like we have in the US. So you know when you move into a house, or you know when you're at a playground, you can look on your map and you can say, in this area 1 mile from you, there are these predators, these sexual predators, and their names. Unfortunately, and I will say this because I know a lot of people who know me probably know who my abuser is because I have said his name before. I will not say it here, but I have said it before. I've said it on Facebook. I've talked about it on other podcasts. And people know who my predator is. He walks around as a free man. He never went to court. And when I was older and I tried to go to court, a good friend of mine, a trusted friend of mine who was a lawyer at the time, told me, honestly, don't even do it. They're going to drag your name in the mud. You're going to be Beth, and then that's it. And to this day, I mean, people know who he is, and people are also aware that I'm not his only victim. There are many others. Even when I came forth on Facebook one day in a conversation and I spoke his name, I was met with several private messages of people saying, oh my goodness, that same person abused me. And I know of other people who he abused. That blew my mind on a different level because I did not know that about that person. And it almost seems like even if we have a sex offender registry in Dominica with a name on there, I still don't think anything is going to be done. It has to be, we have to find a bigger solution. We need to probably make some examples of some people, maybe. Sometimes you have to start that way. And I mean, I hate to be the one to sound so negative, but I think some people need to be made a big example of to maybe scare the other ones.
And Abby, as I come to you, and why do we attack the person who was preyed on? Why do we attack the victim? Right? Why are we saying to the victim, well, it's not going to go anywhere? Why don't we make it go somewhere? So that a lawyer is not saying to you, why are you even going to try to pursue this? You know, we have so much work to do in Dominica. And I think, Auntie Hermelina Watson, she's my aunt, she raised a good point. She says, another problem, do we have therapy for the kids that went through sex crimes against them? So I think we're seeing all these important points that everyone is raising on our Facebook page. Tina said, I just made a comment about promiscuity, and you mentioned it, Dr. Simone. Yes, Tina, you're absolutely right. A Facebook user says, very important topic. We need to establish a sex offender registry, right? But how do we establish a sex offender registry when people are not being convicted?
Yeah.
Because don't you have to be convicted first
Yes.
to be placed on the registry? So the first step is the conviction process. And I'm just very concerned that we're not moving very rapidly. So one of our audience members said it, they're sent back into the community to repeat the offense on the child as well as other children, as you later found out, Dr. Shamina. So Abby, let me come to you for any comments you may have.
Well, I will speak in reference to the comment from the person on Facebook who said that why aren't the names being published? Just yesterday, I saw a news article of the recent sexual offense where and the news article had a clause at the bottom saying that they are unable to release the name
Yep.
because it is an offense according to the Sexual Offences Act of Dominica. And I found it very ridiculous that that is something you cannot publish. I mean, taunting, and I made this comment on Facebook. I said taunting the person, the accused, should be considered an offense because you are innocent until proven guilty. But making people aware of who that person is should not be an offense, in my opinion. I feel that there are too many injustices done. First of all, the court process takes way too long. So in the time you are not saying who that person is, the person could commit how many other crimes. The person could abuse several other people because they are not aware that that person is in fact being what or was convicted of a sexual offense. And I feel that that tedious process is one of the reasons why you should be able to know who those accused people are. Another comment I will speak to is someone's comment who mentioned if sexual offenses is the only thing we're talking about. I want to say that the Girl Guides Association is not solely focusing on sexual abuse. We are tackling all the different areas of child abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, physical abuse, verbal abuse, because all of these severely affect a child in one way or another. And I feel that it is all of our duties to educate and raise awareness on these types of things so we can see that the society changes. Abuse can lead to several other things. When you see that there is a prevalence of delinquency, it can come from abuse because the child has been abused. They can turn to be someone who is not what we consider an upstanding citizen
And they can
because of
become an
what
abuser as well.
Yeah.
exactly. So I feel that it is important for us to know how to deal with these types of things and not sweep it under the carpet because it will come back to bite us at a later date.
Right, absolutely. And Dr. Shamina, I'm going to come to you, but I like what Flora says. Don't forget neighbors, because I think what we found is that with COVID, so many parents didn't have a choice because a lot of the daycares and the schools were closed, and they had to entrust their neighbors to take
Mhm.
care of their children. So I think that is a great point. And then our Facebook user says we need a more legal consequence for these abusers. So, a lot of it starts with the court systems. Joanne Price Prince says nothing is going to be done in Dominica about child abuse, not a single thing. And Joanne, unfortunately, I think you're right. And that is the sad reality that we've been seeing this for generations. I mean, I was speaking to someone recently, and I'm not going to call the village, but she said she knew of generations where fathers had had children with their children and
Yeah.
nothing had been done. And then we see cases where a 13-year-old goes to the hospital to have a baby and no one does a DNA test
No one asked a
because
question.
that is an abuser,
Yeah.
right? So that should be an immediate arrest, a 13-year-old.
Mhm.
And to make it worse, we hear cases. I think it was you, maybe Dr. Shamina, that told me that they're having baby showers
Mhm.
for 13-year-olds who are pregnant. So
They're so
it just speaks
desensitized,
to
though.
how much work we
Yeah.
have to do, Dr. Shamina.
We're so desensitized. The nurses will know, like, or like, there's a girl on the ward who's about to give birth, and there are instances where the man will come in when the child is born to bring layette, and they allow him to leave. This happens in Dominica. So it happens, it may happen in other places too, but I mean it's really bad. It's really bad in Dominica. And one thing I just wanted to point out to folks, because I did some serious reading of the scientific literature around the abuse, and it is said that Dominica and Jamaica are tied for number one in the amount of
Imagine that.
in the Caribbean. That blew my mind to be on that level with Jamaica. And as a country with less people too, much less people, the
So
number
repeat that again. Repeat that again, Dr. Shamina.
so Dominica and Jamaica are tied for the number one countries in the amount of sexual abuse cases reported. And that does not include the amount of cases that go unreported where children did not speak. So from the numbers that have spoken up, Dominica and Jamaica are leading in child sexual abuse cases.
That is
So
so sad.
it
And
is sad.
Avril, that's a good
Considering
point.
our
This is worse.
population, that's
Yes.
Yes. Think of the population. That is why I asked her to repeat it.
Yeah.
Because think of the population of Jamaica
Yeah.
compared to the population of Dominica.
Right.
Yet we
exactly.
are tied.
Yes.
And again, we're talking about the reported cases. What about the cases that are not reported?
Right. Yeah.
Right? So as I come to you guys for your final thoughts as we wind down the program, Avril says this is worse than the crime, pushing the victim not to pursue justice. Absolutely. Our Facebook user says a PA campaign. Catherine, some mothers cause abuse to continue when they take payment under the table. I've heard about that.
Mhm.
Yes.
I've heard
I
of
have.
an incident in my own area in Dominica where someone told my mom
Mm-hmm.
that yes, he abused my daughter, but he paid me $500, so it's okay. I mean,
$500. That is
where are we living? Are we living in a
That's
real
illegal
world?
to me.
yeah.
That the dignity and the essence of your child is stolen, and
Mm-hmm.
you are happy to receive $500 to keep quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Maslin says you divorce the man, he divorced his children. It's culture of men leaving the mothers to play both roles. So true.
Mm-hmm.
Joanne, the system was created by men way back when, and it was done in a way to keep themselves safe. Auntie Hummy, they have that law not publishing the name, because too many big names are involved, plain and simple. So I'm just reading comments. Flora, no adult has the right to violate a child teenager's privacy, no matter how the child carries himself or herself. David, Joseph, Hermelina Watson, it is rather unfortunate that in 2022 we do not have very little on little therapy to rehab facilities in Dominica. Island style fish whale watching and charters. The social welfare division is also very understaffed. Catherine, poverty causes child sex abuse. The man is paying all the bill, putting food on the table, and so much more. And Thai says, hush money. So I
Mhm.
think we've covered a lot this evening, ladies. And again, I want to thank you for being here to help us to navigate this important topic and to kind of navigate a direction to at least protecting our children. Because fortunately, here in the US, Canada, the UK, we have rules and folks are prosecuted, and we have the registries and all that is necessary to protect and to prosecute. But I am very concerned that in Dominica we are so lacking. So Dr. Shamina, as we wind down, I want to get your final thoughts. But how do we make this into a bigger project? How do we keep this as an ongoing project and keep it in the limelight?
So one thing I thought about doing, so the book is called If You Touch, I'll Tell. And I thought about writing a non-picture book that would be If You Touch, I'll Tell for the trusted adult. And it would be a book that would just basically a guide for signs of abuse, how to recognize abuse, what is grooming, and talk about that, and questions to ask your children before, during, and after. Just something really geared more towards an adult, a trusted adult. So
That's a
that
great
was just
idea.
one thing I thought about, and I haven't gotten too far because, like
Yes.
I said before, I have two small children, but I'm definitely not stopping. I'm going to keep on working on the topic here for to help Dominica, and of course, even here in the US, because it's not perfect here either. And I would love to partner with you, Abigail, and you, Dr. Simone, to do
Oh,
something
yeah.
together. So,
That would be a
Yeah,
pleasure.
yeah, and I think I'm coming to you, Abby, and I think we've started an important conversation, and we can take the different topics that was presented from our audience, and we can give life and provide more information, raise awareness to the public, the signs to look for. Because yes, prosecution may be lacking, but we can still protect our children. And for all of us who have children at our homes, when we put them to bed tonight and we realize that they're safe and they're comfortable, I want us to think about the children who are afraid to go to sleep tonight because they're afraid somebody's going to come into their rooms tonight. So I want us to take an approach from that angle where we're thinking, what can we as a community do to protect our children? And Thai says, them topics should go in the ghetto and police force. Okay, Thai, thank you for bringing the local language to the platform. Magdalene says, form an association for child abuse in Dominica. I think that is a great idea. And Abby, it sounds like you guys are leading the way with the work that you're doing with the Girl Guide Association. So, your final thoughts as we wind on the program?
Okay, to conclude, what I will say is that in reference to the comment made earlier that nothing will be done for child abuse in Dominica, what I have to say is that if we are seeing that there is a problem in how it is being addressed, it is up to us now to take a stand against child abuse. And we need to come together. So many of us agree that it is an issue that nothing is being done about. So it is up to us to demand that there is change and a better life is created for our children in Dominica. So, as our theme says, make child abuse prevention your number one priority. And I'm asking that everyone after tonight, you have been briefed on certain things that happened, certain signs. I am asking that you make child abuse your number one priority. If you see something, say something. Try to help out. Even if you're not a parent, there may be children there may be parents of young children Try to help out by raising awareness for child abuse prevention. The GGAD has a campaign that we're starting actually this week. So every third Friday of every month, you wear baby blue, the universal color for child abuse. So starting this Friday, we're asking the public to join us in wearing baby blue to stand in solidarity against child abuse.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I have to also mention that there's a button that comes with the book. I thought that was such a great idea. And Flora says to begin training our children, let us ensure that no matter how young they are, please do not bathe them in front of others without their swimsuit. Ensure that their bodies are covered around others in the yard, the river, etc. Reconsider
Mhm.
the type of nighties they use. So sad. And yes, it is sad we have to have these conversations. Geraldine, thanks for bringing this topic to light. Dr. Simone, Marceline, so much child abuse in Dominica and not one march, not one protest. Marceline, you read my mind. You read my
Mhm.
mind. Because one of the things I was thinking is that those great walks that Auntie Mate is putting on Wednesday. Why don't we have that as one of the themes?
That would be amazing.
That would be a great idea to have that as one of the things. And I'm not in
It
touch with
would.
Afi, but I'm
It
in touch
would.
with Margot, who's one of the organizers. And
Mhm.
I'm going to bring that to her attention. I'm going to tell her, why don't we have that as not just one theme, but several themes on several Wednesdays to continue to raise awareness that much more needs to be done to protect our children and also to prosecute the predators. Facebook user says, loving the response to nothing will be done about child abuse. We are the change. We must push, we must report, we must hold the legal system responsible and the abusers most importantly. So any final thoughts?
I just want to commend Abigail for the work that she's doing, Mrs. Christmas, because I'm talking from a distance, but you're in the thick of things. So I want to thank you for taking care of our girls in Dominica because even though I'm not there, Dominica is my home, and every child in Dominica that gets abused, when I find out about it, it breaks my heart every single time. So thank you so much. Know that even though you feel you're doing a little bit, it's a lot and you're not alone. I'm here to support you. We're going to partner, we're going to have discussions, and we're going to get something going.
Right, absolutely. And the beauty of technology, Abby, is you can actually have Dr. Shamina do a presentation to one of your conferences. So
Yes.
I'm very happy that we make the connections. Tina says, congratulations again, Dr.
Thank you so
Aubuchon,
much.
on your book. Abby, I admire you, young lady, as usual. Great hosting, Dr. Simone. So thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Dr. Shamina. Thank you,
Thank you.
Abby, for being here, for
Thank you.
sharing on this important topic. I hope that it is a conversation we can continue to have as we work to protect our children in Dominica and everywhere. As always, I am Simone Matthew. Thank you for being a part of the Push Past 10 Nation. Don't forget to follow, like, share so we can continue the important work that we do and we can continue to bring you these important topics. Decima, great program. Thank you, Decima. Great to see you. So, again, thank you everyone for being here. Until next time, you have yourself a wonderful evening. Take
Bye,
care.
guys.
Okay, good night, everyone.